Why did that make things worse between you and her? Even before I went there, I didn't have a connection with her. The way we were together didn't seem very strong. Colin, Jon Gosselin's son, has finally told the world a shocking secret about his mother, Kate. My mom got violent. You know, my mom always told me no one would believe me. I was cut off from everyone. After years of keeping quiet and being forced to be alone, Colin's brave confession sheds light on the emotional and physical abuse he went through, including being locked up by Kate. The Gosselin family's carefully constructed image starts to fall apart as Jon tries to get his son back and reveal the truth. This makes people question Kate's actions and the hidden truths of their broken family. I'm not mad at him. Never have and never will. The Gosselin family's public image was a lie. For years, Americans watched Jon and Kate plus 8 and were enthralled by their seemingly perfect but messy life. Jon and Kate became well known when they had 8 kids, including twins and sextuplets. Their reality show gave viewers a look at the ups and downs of having such a big family. Kate was the star, a mom who was praised for taking a straightforward approach to parenting. It was hard for her to be tough, but she loved everyone. Hey, or so it looked. People saw a woman who was a mother and famous at the same time. She had strict rules and said she did everything for her kids' well-being. But life behind the scenes at the Gosselin home was very different, especially for one child. It wasn't like his brothers to be Colin Gosselin. He wasn't the quiet, nice kind of guy. In Kate's eyes, he was rebellious because he was interested and independent. People didn't answer his questions, but he did. He didn't follow rules that didn't make sense to him. He paid a high price for that. Kate wasn't as strict with Colin as she was with the other kids. Kids his age got timeouts, but he got strong punishments. Where they were scolded, he got in more trouble. He started to see a pattern over time. People didn't treat him like a family member. They saw him as a problem that needed to be fixed. The way he was treated got worse as he got older. In real life, Kate was the busy but loving mom. Colin was made the victim because he was the child she couldn't or wouldn't manage. And when Kate had enough, she found a way to get rid of him for good. Reality TV is based on lies. That's the dark truth behind the cameras. What people see has been carefully planned and edited to tell a story that keeps people interested. And Kate Gosselin knew more than anyone else how powerful it is to control a story. The outside world saw her as the stressed-out but capable mother of 8 trying her best to keep things in order in a normally chaotic home. She was structured, followed the rules, and was strict. She seemed strict, but it was all out of love. At least that's what most people thought. There was shock when Colin came out to tell the world a very important story about his mother. Behind the scenes of the television show that made the Gosselins famous, the truth was much less nice inside their home. Her rules weren't just to keep things in order, they were also a way to keep people in line. In fact, Colin was the child who pushed that power the most. Colin has had a hard time with Kate's strict parenting since he was a little boy. He wasn't acting rebellious in a way that should have made you worry. He was just interested, asking questions about things that didn't make sense to him and speaking out when he thought something was wrong. Colin did not follow along like his brothers did. He spoke out against what they were doing. And that wasn't okay in Kate's world. At first, there weren't many changes in how they were treated. Kate was less patient with him and her tone was more stern. Colin's punishments were tougher than those given to the kids. He was often to blame when things went wrong. But as the years went by, those small differences became things that made people feel alone. Colin wasn't just punished, he was also pushed away. His brothers started to treat him differently, which made him angry just like Kate did. They did what she said, whether they thought he was the real problem or were just afraid of going against the rules. Colin stood out because he wasn't quite like the other kids or behaved the way Kate had expected. Then, out of the blue, he stopped being on the show. He started to show up less often. On family trips, there were 7 kids instead of 8. His picture was taken without him. The exit wasn't very exciting. There wasn't a moment on screen where everyone agreed that something was wrong. After that, he was never seen again. Kate gave a simple reason. She told the media that Colin had special needs and needed care that she could no longer give at home. Most people thought it made sense. The mother was doing what was best for her child by making a painful but necessary choice for his health. But Colin knew the truth even though he was locked up in a place he shouldn't have been. This is what he said in an interview, calling her pure evil. In that room my mother built, she often tied my hands and feet together and locked me in there for most or all of the day on multiple days. When people heard this, they were shocked and didn't understand how the loving mother they saw on TV could have been so bad. But when they learned that Colin wasn't sent away because he needed help but because Kate wanted him to leave, they changed how they felt about the whole thing. He was cut off from his family and had to suffer alone for 2 years, hoping that someone would notice and help him. Everything went on as planned, with everyone believing Kate's story until Colin found a way to get in touch. And when he finally spoke, his story about the Gosselin family broke all the rules people thought they knew. Most kids see their home as a safe place where they are cared for, led, and accepted. But for Colin, Gosselin home had turned into a place where he felt trapped and unable to move. Every move he made was watched. Every question he asked was met with anger, and just being there was seen as an issue. From a very young age he knew he was different from his brothers. It wasn't because he was bad, but because Kate had picked him as the tough one. It was impossible for her to get away after she made that choice. At first it was small things like stricter rules, longer fines, and being treated less nicely. But over time the distance between them grew stronger. His brothers started to treat him like he didn't belong because of how their mother treated him. They slowly took away the love he used to feel in his family, leaving him feeling alone and increasingly afraid. It's possible that they didn't want to upset Kate, or because they had been taught to think that Colin was the problem. Then one day he was gone without any notice or talk. He was sent to a mental hospital by Kate. People generally agreed with her reasoning because they knew how hard it was to raise 8 kids. Not many people asked why only one child had to be taken away. Not many people asked what special needs really meant in this case, and almost no one asked why his own father hadn't been able to have a say. Colin's life in the facility was not good. The center where he was sent was not an organized therapeutic setting like those shown in the media. Instead, it was a place where people were locked up. He wasn't getting individualized care to help him grow because he was locked up and cut off from everyone else. It was days, then nights, then months, and still no one came to see him, wrote him, or showed any sign that they were thinking about him. His mother, who used to say she was the best parent and would do anything to protect her kids, had just cut him out of her life, treating him like he wasn't a son but a burden. He never reached out to his brothers, either because they didn't know how much he was hurting or because they were afraid to question their mother's power. Outside life went on, and Colin might have forgotten about him by now. Even though he was very lonely, he refused to believe this was the end of his story. He had a very small chance that someone still cared about him and wanted to find him. And when the chance finally came, when he figured out how to send a message to someone outside of his solitude, he didn't think twice. He had nothing to lose. Jon Gosselin was the person he reached out to because he had never stopped looking for him. Kate told the story of the Gosselin family so that everyone saw only what she wanted them to see. Jon, on the other hand, stayed in the background and was portrayed as the unstable dad who had left his kids. Jon had never left, though. He lost a nasty custody fight to Kate, who used her fame and carefully kept image to get full control. He had been cut off from his children's lives because of this. According to the media, Kate told the truth about what happened. For years, Jon had no control and his children were raised under her strict rule. But he never stopped caring, especially about Colin, even though they were far apart. Seeing how Colin was treated differently since the kids were little was always clear to him. He saw that Kate was losing her temper with him because he was getting in more trouble and being yelled at more often. Jon had always known that Colin was open and interested, which made him think of himself. But Kate saw her son's independence as a sign of defiance, while Jon saw it as a strength. Besides, Kate's family did not allow rebellion. When Jon found out that Kate had sent Colin away, it was clear how far she was ready to go to keep her family's image in check. Away, Jon was shocked, but not completely shocked. He still didn't agree with the reasoning. The phrase special needs wasn't very clear and Kate wouldn't give any more information. Why didn't Jon know that Colin was having trouble if he was? How come he wasn't allowed to have a say in what happened to his own son? And Kate had all the formal power. Jon, on the other hand, had no rights to the child and was shut out for years. He couldn't find out what was going on with Colin. He was left to wonder and think of the worst that could happen. Then, after what seemed like an endless time, his worst fears came true. There was a letter. While the writing was shaky and hurried, the message was painfully clear. "Dad, please come get me." Colin had found a way to send this desperate plea for help even though it was risky. He had been locked up, left alone and unable to speak. But now he was talking and begged people to pay attention. Jon didn't think twice about it. He knew he had to do something as soon as he read those words. It had been too long since his son had been heard. He had been left to suffer while everyone believed Kate's carefully crafted version of the truth. But now the truth was coming out and Jon was ready to do anything to protect his son. Jon stands up for Colin. Jon Gosselin's life changed when he got Colin's letter. It no longer mattered how far apart they lived, how long they fought for custody, or how they were painted as the missing father. His son had reached out. His son had asked for help. And Jon knew he had to fight for him even though he hadn't done anything for years and Kate had become a strong person. Jon didn't wait around. Knowing what Colin had been through made his heart heavy, so he set out right away to figure out how to bring his son home. But things weren't as simple as just picking him up from a hospital and going. Jon could not legally take Colin from the mental hospital without getting into a lot of trouble with the law, especially since Kate still had main care of all their children. Like always, Kate had her guard up. It was clear to her that she was in charge of her kids' lives. For many people, she was the one who was doing what was best for Colin because she had been clear about why she was sending him away. It would take more than a father's sense for Jon to question her choices. He would have to tear through the court system, questioning Kate's actions and showing where her story falls apart. Jon wasn't scared, though. He knew that Colin would be forgotten and cut off from society forever if he didn't do something and push for the truth to be told. The first thing he did was talk to a lawyer who could help him find his way through the legal mess that was in his way. He also tried to get in touch with anyone who could help bring the truth about what had happened to Colin to light. At the same time, Jon started telling other people about his worries. He knew there were risks, but he also knew that the more people knew about it, the more his wife Kate would have to give in and let him see his son. In interviews, Jon didn't hold back. He was honest about how this was making him feel and how the story about Colin's position was confused and pieced together. "My private life with my children is being blasted out by someone who wasn't even there," he said. He made it clear that his son Colin should be heard and that no one else could make decisions about his life without first talking to him. The media had a range of reactions. Some people supported Jon because they saw him as a father who was trying to keep his son safe from a bad situation where people were directing him. Others believed Kate, going along with the story she had carefully built up over the years. But one thing was clear: Jon's fight was getting people's attention, and more importantly, it was making Kate look weak. Kate could not hide forever, no matter how much she tried to control and trick people. Her carefully planned life was beginning to show signs of the truth. When Jon started to fight for Colin, Kate's walls started to fall apart. The people had a hard time getting into Kate's world. The mom who had to make tough choices for the sake of her kids' health and safety. She was the one who had been through hard times, raised 8 kids, and dealt with the stresses of fame while keeping her family together. But cracks were starting to show up below the surface. Over the course of years, Kate had tight control over the story. Even though it wasn't true, she had played the part of the perfect mother. A well-thought-out public image made it look like she was always looking out for her kids, which was what made her famous. The public's view of Kate began to change as Jon's fight gained attention. As time went on, people began to doubt the choices she had made about Colin. Many wondered why she had sent him to a hospital while the other kids were allowed to stay home.
People were also surprised that Jon had been kept in the dark and couldn't talk to his own kid for such a long time. The media paid close attention to everything she said, going over what she had already said and finding contradictions. Kate, on the other hand, refused to recognize the mounting stress. She kept telling the same story. Colin had special needs and needed professional care, and she had chosen the best thing for him. For as long as she could, she kept acting like the loving mother who was only doing what was best for her kid. In spite of the growing pressure, it became clear that the people were not buying it. Jon's lawyer started to look into it more, gathering proof and talking to people who knew Kate well when Colin was sent away. They found upsetting information like Kate's allegedly contradictory statements, a lack of solid evidence to back up her claims about Colin's needs, and a pattern of controlling behavior that didn't just affect Colin. Jon wasn't just fighting to get his kid back, he was also fighting to show what Kate had been doing, which had been kept secret for a long time because of how the family looked in public. People began to wonder what Kate was really up to as Jon and Kate fought more. Was she really looking out for her kid's best interests, or was she just using her power to make up a story that fit her needs? As Kate's walls came down, it became clear that this wasn't just a family event. The whole world watched as the Gosselin family's carefully built reality fell apart piece by piece. The truth was beginning to shine through, and Jon was at the front of that discovery. Colin felt like he was getting closer than ever to being free. But now that everyone was looking at the Gosselin's broken image, Kate's next move was still unknown. Would she fight back, or would she have to deal with the effects of being lied to and controlled for years? Things were very dangerous, and the fight wasn't over yet. The fight to get Colin's life back, the fight for his freedom, was far from over when he came back. Colin's release from the mental hospital stayed a distant hope despite Jon's legal attempts and the growing attention from the media. Kate made her position clear when she refused to recognize Jon's rights or the truth of Colin's pain. It was clear that she would do anything to keep control of her kids, and Colin was no different. But Jon's determination and Colin's strong plea were starting to make things better. It was hard for Jon to imagine how it made him feel. It was hard for him to think that his son had been locked up for so many years, being left out alone and ignored. His son had the basic right to be heard, but his mother told everyone that he was a difficult kid who needed to be taken away from the family for the better good. I could no longer stand by and watch as his mother buried his son under her rule. It felt like every phone call, court meeting, and attempt to get in touch with people who could help Colin's case was a step toward the light. After a long and tiring fight in court, Jon's determination finally paid off. The judge agreed with him and gave him temporary custody of Colin, but only under very strict rules. The decision did say that the change would happen slowly so that Colin could get used to being back in the world he had been taken from. Jon knew this was just the start, even though Kate was very angry. After the court case, things moved forward a lot, but Colin's mental journey was still just beginning. Colin's visit to his dad's house was not a happy meeting out of a fairy tale. They didn't welcome him back with a warm hug or an easy acceptance. His time in the hospital left deep scars on him, and he often felt betrayed, confused, and scared. Jon was ready to help him get better, but he didn't know how to start. The first few days at home were painful and awkward. Colin didn't say much and often hid in his room to avoid making eye contact. He was no longer known to his own family. He was just a quiet ghost of the boy who used to live in a big, busy house. Jon was calm, though he knew Colin wanted some time. He was set on letting him know that he had not been forgotten, though. Jon worked hard every day to make the space safe and welcoming, to heal the relationship that had been broken for a long time. He didn't force Colin to talk, he just let him know he was always there for him. The walls between them started to fall down over time. Colin had to learn how to trust again, and not just Jon. So did his brothers, who didn't know much about what happened when he went missing. Whenever they let him back into their house, there was a strange stress in the air. It was important for the Gosselin kids to follow their mom's rules, and in some ways they believed what she said happened. They had been told that Colin was having issues and was a trouble kid. When they saw him again, they had to face the truth: their brother had been taken away from them without a good reason. Jon knew that the road ahead would not be easy. Colin had been in a place for a long time where he felt he wasn't seen or loved. Colin Gosselin wasn't just Colin Gosselin at Jon's house, though. He was Jon's son, and any child should get all the care, kindness, and love that a son should get. Jon was ready to fight until his son felt safe again, but he knew it would take some time. It would take years to get back what was lost. The public reveals: Kate's life started to fall apart as Colin got used to his new life with Jon. She had built up an image of herself over the years as a perfect, driven mother who could do no wrong. But it was beginning to break down. Jon's public fight for his son Colin did more than just bring him home. It also showed how Kate's story was very much false. She could no longer hide the truth about what had happened to Colin behind closed doors. The news started to dig deeper, and as more information about Colin's life in the prison came out, public opinion changed. People who used to support Kate and praise her for handling her 8 kids while the media was watching were now doubting her intentions. People were talking more loudly about how Colin was treated, and now they want answers. Kate insisted that Colin needed to be put in a hospital. Did she really want to help him, or was it just an easy way for her to get rid of a child who didn't fit into her idea of a perfect family? When Jon finally got to see his son again, he didn't hold back. He kept talking in public about how Colin had been hurt emotionally and physically while he was away. The public didn't know what was wrong with him, but family members said there had been a new, much worse fight involving Jon. Even though there were no official comments at the time, there were hints that something very bad was going on. Some news sites said that an emergency protective order had been made by a third party with close ties to the situation. Insiders had hinted at sealed court documents and internal investigations. There was more and more speculation as more information came out. Most of it pointed to a father-son relationship that was getting worse, with angry rants and physical fights. It was said that Jon's behavior toward Colin had become insecure and erratic, leading to an event that hurt Colin physically because of stress. Reports say that these injuries needed long stays in the hospital and made people very worried about Jon's ability to be a parent. No exact time frame or full account of what happened was ever made public, but the fact that both sides kept quiet only made people more suspicious. As of the beginning of 2025, Jon Gosselin had been officially charged with a violent domestic episode. Many court papers were kept secret because of laws protecting minors, but several sources said that medical reports, text messages, and witness statements were among the proof against Jon. Insiders said the charges were very serious and included aggravated child abuse with the aim to cause major bodily harm. The news shocked everyone. Could this calm and quiet dad who had worked so hard to protect his kids really hurt one of them? Fans of Jon and Kate +8 had a hard time believing that the husband who never argued with his wife could hit his own son. What had really been going on behind the scenes all those years? Kate seemed bossy. Was she naturally that way, or did she have to become that way to protect her kids? Some people thought that Jon's bad behavior might have come from having a hard youth. He wouldn't let anyone forget about how much his son was hurt. As the media swarmed around him, Jon's rising platform became a lighthouse of truth for people who had felt forgotten or silenced. He wasn't just fighting for Colin, he was also fighting to make Kate pay for what she had done. As the heat on Kate grew, she started to act defensively. On public comments, she said she had done what was best for Colin and that she had never meant to hurt him. But those claims didn't make sense. It became too easy to ignore the flaws in her carefully crafted image. People didn't believe her when she tried to take back control of the story. For the first time, people started to wonder why she did what she did, and some even called Kate, who used to be the respected mother, was now being watched closely by everyone. Even though she tried to put the blame on someone else, her ex-husband, the system, or anyone else, the damage was already done. Kate could no longer hide the truth after Jon's fight for Colin. This was just the start for Colin. Everyone now knew how badly he was hurting. He would have liked his mother's actions to stay in the past, but telling everyone about his situation was a turning point in his healing. He was no longer hidden or kept quiet. He was free to start his recovery journey and look for the truth that had been kept from him for so long. But for Kate, the effects were just getting started. Her image, which used to be based on the idea that she was perfect, was falling apart, and the years she had spent managing the story of the Gosselin family were quickly coming to an end. The truth quickly found those who thought they could hide it, and now everyone knew who she really was. What did you think about Kate Gosselin's choice to put her son in a foster home? Just write your thoughts in the box below. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.